What's going on, baseball fans? Welcome to Baseball as Intended, the podcast, episode 16. This is your host, Jejo, alongside my good friend, John. And we're going to have a lot to talk about today. We're going to be talking about Contreras. There's some problems over there in St. Louis. Maybe he's one of them. We're going to be talking about who's hot, who's not, who's hot, who's not. There's a lot of players hot and a lot of teams hot, a lot of teams that are not hot. And then we also have a little bit start, bench, and cut, which we're going to give you three teams. And we're going to decide who we're going to start, bench, and cut. And then, we missed an episode last week, but we're back. John was a little bit under the weather after an amazing weekend. He just couldn't recover. So we're back this week, and I had to blame him. So talking about John, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. How you doing?
Yeah, good late afternoon. Yeah, I had a great weekend. I went on a golf trip and my age caught up to me. I didn't recover. Now, it wasn't just like a hangover. I actually got sick, but
Yeah.
I think it was my body telling me like there's a reason these trips are once a year. So that's on me. But yeah, we're into May baseball. I'm excited to be back. Feels like we haven't done this in forever. I mean, we only missed one, but a lot of things have changed. A lot of things have not changed. So I'm excited to kind of take a look at it.
Excited after May or April is done. Now we're on to May baseball. That's what we're calling here on the YouTube channel, May baseball. So
Yeah,
if you're
we're
new,
very
if
good
you're
with
watching,
titles.
yeah, if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to like, subscribe, share with a friend. If you're listening on audio format, make sure to follow it and rate it and all that good stuff. Before we get started, today's sad news out of the baseball world. Vida Blue, Oakland A's legend, 17-year career. He passed away at the age of 73. So we want to go ahead and mention that RIP to Vida. Long career, good lefty out of there. He had he won the Cy Young and MVP when he was 21, which is crazy, like to think about, right? If you see a 21-year-old winning a Cy Young and an MVP as a pitcher, you don't see that often. So he had a very good career, obviously, Hall of Famer. Passed away at the age of 73. So that's part of
Yeah,
the lid off, sad, but we wanted to
yeah,
mention that.
no, yeah, and I like that he's getting the recognition he deserves. I mean, like you said, it's only a handful of pitchers that win the Cy Young and the MVP in the same year. He did it at such a young age. He was such a big part of Oakland during that time. Just a Bay Area legend, like you said. So I'm happy he's getting the recognition he deserves, and obviously, thoughts and prayers for his family and all that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Are you ready to get started?
Let's get started. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. I'm ready. I'm already fired up about this first topic.
Well, the first topic is going to be some news out of St. Louis. So, as we know, next topic is going to be who's hot, who's not. The St. Louis Cardinals are not off to a hot start.
Spoiler
and,
alert.
And when we say that they have the third worst record in baseball, they're 11-24. They have the MVP from last year, Goldie. Arenado still there, a little bit hurt, maybe banged up a little bit. But they also signed Wilson Contreras to a 5-year, $87.5 million contract as a catcher. There's not a lot of good catchers, but apparently this week we got some news that Wilson Contreras is going to be DHing a lot. He's going to be playing some outfield as well. If you're the Cardinals, John, or talk to me about this situation, because if you're the Cardinals, you spend money on a catcher, but you're not going to use him as a catcher. Is he at fault? What's going on? What's going on in St. Louis?
So St. Louis, they're falling apart. Never thought I'd say this. Last time we talked, we said we obviously expect them to get rolling, right? This is an issue. This doesn't really have to do with the bat, right? Now, he's not lighting it up with the bat, but this has to do, essentially, they're saying he can't handle the pitching staff. To me, they're making him out to be a scapegoat. So the pitching staff is just atrocious right now. And instead of blaming the pitchers, instead of blaming the pitching coach, instead of blaming the pitching staff or the coaching staff, they're just saying, oh, it's Wilson Contreras' fault. Well, he's not Yadier Molina, but you weren't going to find another Yadier Molina. No other team has had a Yadier Molina, and we're 1 month in and you're saying this is why our pitching is atrocious. They don't have a great rotation, honestly. I mean, I like Montgomery. Steven Matz is in there. He's been a mid-level guy for a long time. I don't necessarily think that this is Wilson Contreras' fault. And if you have concerns with it, I think you got to give your new free agent acquisition more than a month. That's just me. I think you got to give him more than a month. He was the premier free agent at his position. There's a reason for that. People knew he wasn't Yadier Molina, but there's a reason he was the number one guy. No one said, "Oh, why are the Cardinals signing him?" So I don't like it at all by the Cardinals, to be honest with you. I think this takes like a stressful situation that they're in, and they say, "How do we add a little more stress to this?" We're gonna blame our big free agent guy, and I don't like it. What do you think?
30 games in, right? 30 games in a little too soon. Obviously, there's some injuries. I think they have a lot of problems. Wilson Contreras might be one of them, right? You know,
Right.
I think when you look at this, they had Yadi Molina for 20 years, right, or whatever, however long he played. And a lot of the times we talk about defense for catcher and how underrated it is, right? We see Martin Maldonado in Houston. He hits 175, whatever he hits. He's there for the defense because he matters. He helps the pitchers.
Right.
And that's exactly what Yadier Molina did for the Cardinals for decades, right? Or for multiple, or for 20 years, whatever long he
Yeah.
played. And now I think the Cardinals are realizing, like, oh my God, this is not, it's very difficult to find a catcher that can kind of guide a pitching staff the way Yadi did. Again, when you sign Wilson Contreras, you don't sign him for the defense either. So I don't know what were their
No.
expectations. Like you mentioned, they don't have the best pitching staff either. I don't think Wilson Contreras is the catcher to make an average pitcher turn him into a great pitcher either. But there's a lot of problems when you look at, Goldie still being Goldie, but Arenado doesn't seem to be 100%. Arenado is hitting 232, 3 home runs. Like he's not himself right now. That's obviously part of the reason as well. You got Tyler O'Neill, who just went into the IL. He had a big year a couple years back, but is he a one-hit wonder? Maybe I say this like a walking steroid because that's what Tyler O'Neill is.
Yeah.
But like he can't figure it out either. They got a lot of the young guys. They showed, and this is exactly why we were so high on them, because they have the combination of young guys with veterans. It's not working out. And the hole that they're in right now, if I pull up the standings, like I mentioned, they're 11-24. Like they are already far. You got Pittsburgh.
It's
Obviously,
steep.
It's steep, but at the same time, first place team, it's Pittsburgh with 20 wins. Right? There's some question marks when it comes to Pittsburgh. There's always going to be question marks when it comes to Pittsburgh. The division is still within range, so I like the fact that they're trying to figure out now. But again, I don't know if they're pointing their finger the wrong way.
Well, the other thing is, we know this in baseball, especially a manager's job nowadays, is to kind of keep the clubhouse together for the longest season in sports, right? 162 games. It's a long time. I don't think this benefits the clubhouse at all.
Yeah.
At all. I mean, Wilson Contreras, I don't want to call him a hothead, but he's had some things where, he's rubbed some people some wrong ways in the past. And I don't necessarily know that he's a bad teammate, good teammate. I think he's probably, as he's grown older, he's a pretty good teammate. But why are you taking this step so early to just cause more turmoil over there? I don't see it. I think the conversation you have to have, like you said, is with some of your veterans and say, hey, you guys got to start leading by example here. We got to start grinding this out. It's a long season. This feels like pushing the panic button and the blame button all at once. And I don't necessarily know. Like, the Cardinals pitching rotation better come out and start dealing in the next 2-3 weeks, or this just makes them look stupid. I think I really do think this is the wrong decision, because like you said, Wilson Contreras, we've known who he is, which is a good hitting catcher, for a long time. You signed him for that, and now you're trying to blame him for something else. And I just think it's a terrible look. And I did not expect that at all from the Cardinals.
Yeah, it's surprising coming from the Cardinals too, right? Like we've talked about how the Cardinals were kind of like the Astros or Rays from the NL, where everything that they do goes right. Again, they did have Yadi Molina. When you have certain players for so long, it feels like it's also easier to kind of like build around that. But let me ask you before we wrap up this topic. Like I mentioned, they're 7.5 games back of Pittsburgh for first place. Milwaukee, 18-15. They're a game back of Pittsburgh. We got the Cubs at 500, 17-17. The Reds, 14-19. It's a lot better than what we expected. I'm pretty sure. Are they do they still have a chance? Do the Cardinals really have a chance at coming back for that division and making this a race?
I think 100%. I mean, I think they need to chip their way back to 500 by sometime around the All-Star break, right? It's not a crazy goal. You have a good month or two, and you're pretty close to back there. So I don't think it's a crazy goal. I don't think that this helps. Like, I'm more concerned about the
Yeah.
Cardinals now than I was if we just say, hey, what's wrong with the Cardinals? This news coming out, I don't think it's a good environment over there. So I'm more concerned about them now than I was. I still think they probably figure it out at some point. Like you said, they have good veteran leadership. That matters. I don't think Marmol right now is doing a great job at that. Maybe some of the players will step up. But I do. I have confidence that they get back into the running there. But this hole can cost you. I mean, they can miss out on the top spots in that division just from this start. So I'm not saying by any means that this doesn't matter. They've dug themselves a big hole. I think they can climb out of it,
Yeah.
but I wouldn't feel real comfortable betting on it either.
Yeah, you can definitely see the Cardinals getting hot and making a run.
Yeah.
You know, and then you can also see Pittsburgh and the Cubs getting cold, right? And you
Yes.
can literally pick from a hat any
Wild
four
division.
teams from that division. I'm taking the Reds out. I apologize, Reds fans. All three of you, I apologize. But if
You're
I
not
take
a
the
believer
Reds
yet?
out, no, not yet. No, I can't. I just can't be. But all the other four teams, right? And I'm not a full believer on the Pittsburgh Pirates either. I would like to be because it's fun for baseball, right? I think Pittsburgh, it's an electric city to be when they're good. But if you pick a team from a hat between Pittsburgh, Milwaukee, Cubs, and then the Cardinals, any team can win that division. Like it's a lot of baseball left, and there's a lot of talent there. So interesting.
And you can put those standings in any order you want and say this is what it's going to look like at the end of the year. And I'm like, yeah, well,
I
wild
can
year.
see
Saw it
any,
come. Yeah, yeah. I'm
any
not
and every
surprised.
any and every outcome from that division would not shock me. I'm more shocked at the start. That 11-24 start
Yes.
from the Cardinals is more shocking than anything else. So I don't know. Long season ahead. Just a little bit of a. There's not a lot of drama in baseball when it comes to that, right? So it's interesting when you see this, and especially coming out. It's not the same to put him as a DH every so often. You can hide that like, hey, he's a catcher. We don't want him catching a whole lot. They came out and say it basically like he's gonna be our DH
Yeah.
and outfield. It's like, oh God,
Yeah,
no
because
trust.
he sucks at being a catcher. So thanks for your questions. Like, wow.
Well,
Yeah, interesting.
Contreras said that he loves being a Cardinal a lot more than a Cub, and whew, I don't know if he still feels that way.
We'd
A
like to
month in.
revisit that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
would love to have you on the podcast, Wilson Contreras. You're more than welcome to. This is my official invitation to come on and tell us how you really feel. Well, that's somebody that is off to a not so hot start. So let's talk about some hot starts and not hot starts, right? We got Players of the Month were handed out not too long ago.
Yep.
We had Ronald Acuna from the NL Player of the Month. We had Matt Chapman from the AL Pitchers of the Month. We had Garrett Cole and Clayton Kershaw. It feels like it's 20, I don't know. What year is it? I have no idea. Rookies of the Month, we got Josh Young and Altman from the Dodgers. And then relievers of the month, we got Bautista and Hader. We know about Hader. He's on our
know
base
about
was
Hader.
intended relief, our bullpen. So good for him. Anybody that jumps out at you as far as like a hot start, hot team, hot player or not?
Well, yeah. So two of the guys you mentioned I thought were really interesting. One was Josh Hader because that looked like such an oversight at the beginning of the year, people kind of losing faith in him. And we didn't understand why. I almost started to doubt myself a little bit. I was like, is there something I'm missing here? He's leading the league in saves. He's making the Padres, who are already a very good team, even better, right? Juan Soto's starting to get a little bit more on track, and I think we're going to talk about that later as well. Two guys now making a team that's really good, even better. And then Matt Chapman, same thing. We talked about him, right? We said he's one of the guys that if he can go back to what he was, he makes the Blue Jays, who are a really, really good team, who have been that good without him really producing, even better. So those two guys for me jump out, especially Matt Chapman. If Matt Chapman keeps this up, and I know right now the AL East is just turned on its head and it's crazy. But if he keeps that up, that Blue Jays lineup is just going to be formidable. Absolutely formidable. Bichette, Guerrero, you throw in what you could kind of call like a prime Chapman or what we come to expect from him a little bit when he was with the A's. Those two, I agree. They deserve the awards for the first month. I'm more interested to see if they keep it up because I think it's huge for their teams. Not just for them, it's huge for the teams.
Yeah, and I think out of those two, if somebody can keep it up, it's Ronald Acuna. We've seen very close to a 40-40 year from him in the past. He's always been thrown at as kind of like in the MVP conversation. If he keeps it up, the Braves are in first place. They're cruising. Acuna's cruising. That's the MVP right now. I don't think there's any doubt about it as far as the NL. I do have a couple names that I want to talk about who are off to a hot start. You mentioned one of them, Juan Soto. You mentioned him in our last episode, how maybe he's not that good. And then not that he's on fire, but in the last 7 games or in the last 6 games, he's hitting 364, 500 on base, 1,000 OPS. Maybe he's coming around. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. Last 14 games, which is basically last 14 days, 11 games, is basically when we talked about him last time. And 275, almost 900 OPS. It's a little bit higher. Not a $500 million guy by any means.
Right.
But maybe he's coming around. He was batting about 195 when we talk about him. He's up to 220. Not elite, but still impressive to have a 400 on base.
Something to build on, right? Something to build on.
He has a 400 on base with 220 batting average. Is still very impressive. Somebody else that we mentioned the struggles, and oh my God, what a turnaround for Javi Baez. They benched him in Toronto for not knowing how many outs there were. And the guy was like, okay, I'm going to start hitting and I'm going to stop striking out. Last 14 days, 11 games, he has a 359 batting average, 444 on base, 1.085 OPS, like 3 home runs in the last week. 2 of them, I think, against your Mets. 1 of them against Verlander. Like, what is going on with Javi? Like, I feel like he was hitting singles. He was hitting a lot of singles, not for a lot of power. Now the power is also coming along. So it's good to see Javi Baez there. And I'm going to give you a chance. I know you want to talk about Javi Baez. I can almost see it. I can almost just see it. But I want to mention somebody else. And it's a player and a team. And you can call me a homer or whatever you want. But I said this before the season. Masataka Yoshida. He's on a 16-game hitting streak. This guy's hitting 315 on the year, 937 OPS with a 400 on base. This is exactly what he was doing in Japan for years. And, he's not going to translate. Well, he's translating to the MLB now. Obviously, he was off to a little bit of a slow start, but he is hot. Last 12 games, 500 on base, 447 batting average, over 1,300 OPS. Like, this guy is just insane right now. He's seeing beach balls at the plate. 16-game hitting streak obviously is a big part of what the Red Sox have done, which, they're hot. The Red Sox are very hot, but they're still in 4th place. So, it's just good to see them play good baseball.
Professional baseball in Japan, in my opinion, I think it's the 2nd best league in the world, to be honest with you, aside from the MLB. I think you and me, at least, are starting to lean more into the camp that the good players over there, it will translate, right? 100%. I don't have too many doubts anymore about that. I've watched Senga with the Mets a little bit, and he hasn't been necessarily lights out, but he's got a low 3 ERA, he's 4-1. Yoshida, like you said, they're just kind of doing what they did in Japan, and you look at some of the numbers they put up over there, you're happy to get that over here, even a little bit worse. So, yeah, I'm not going to knock you at all for being excited about the Red Sox because it's the end of the first month. The AL East is, like we said, turned on its head, and you guys are playing pretty well. There's reason to be excited.
They're 21-15, the Red Sox are, and they're still in 4th place. That is...
Look, forget about that.
Crazy. It's tough to forget about it. They're still, right now, as of right now, 4 teams out of the AL East can make the playoffs. You know the team that cannot make the playoff right now? The New York Yankees. Crazy. If I would have told you that a couple months ago, you would have been like, you're insane. No way. But
I think we all would have said that. Don't just throw that on me. Don't just throw that on me. That's been a wild division.
yeah,
Um, I think I do want to talk about Javi Baez. So we had a whole episode, basically. We had Esteban on as a guest that broke down Javi Baez for us. We were kind of asking him questions, giving him our thoughts. He broke it down. And he said something very interesting. He said, because this was right after he was benched, he said, I think Javi's one of those guys who would respond well to getting benched. He's
yep.
a passionate player. That translates into a lot of things. He plays well on the big stage, or it seemed to in the past. And, he thought he would respond well. And he certainly has so far. I
Yeah.
mean, he certainly has. Maybe he did get a little bit comfortable. He signed a big deal in Detroit. In Detroit right now, it feels like there hasn't been a lot to play for a long time. So maybe he was just kind of going through the motions, going up there, getting his at bats, and the results were what they were. I mean, I'm sure he was frustrated, but maybe this was a little bit of a wake up call and got him locked in.
Yeah.
I'm happy for Javi. Like, I like it. He's, he was so exciting at one point, and he's gone through these horrific struggles that are almost funny. Like, there's highlight reels of him swinging at pitches that he can't make contact with. But I think it's really interesting that we may be the anti-jinxers, right? We
Yeah.
mention players and their struggles, and they come out hot.
We may
So
no, we are. Like
yeah,
if this
we're
is
two
not,
for two.
yeah, this is enough evidence.
Yeah, and so yeah, I mean, if you have a favorite player who's struggling and you'd like us to talk about him, just mention it. We may turn your season around.
Yes. Yeah, and it's a promise. We're the exact opposite of the Madden curse.
Yes, yes, we are. And another who's not hot, and this feels like bullying at this point, but the Oakland A's.
It is
The
bullying.
Oakland A's, yeah, the Oakland A's are not only are they leaving Oakland, but I mean they're going out on a historic note. Like, we thought they would be bad. Did you think they would be this bad?
Yeah.
You're gonna say yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I said it. We said that they were going to be historically bad. I mean, they are what, 8-27 right now. Ask me about Kansas City. They're 9-26. I did not think that Kansas City was going to be this bad. So,
Agreed.
I guess I'm defending Oakland, if you will, but no, they should 100% go to Vegas. It is crazy because they do have, I mean, Rooker, who has like 28 home runs already. Somebody that's like, wait, who?
And it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. But yeah, Oakland.
They'll turn over a fresh leaf. We're still rooting for them, still watching them.
Yeah, well, I haven't seen.
You're
the whole
not.
game.
I've watched a couple of games.
I always stay up to date on everything, I will say, but it's tough to watch. I saw earlier or last week, during the week, whatever it was, somewhere on Twitter, where the Oakland A's have like a summer sale, and it's like you can go to like 37 games for like $99. Like, that's how bad it is in Oakland. That's a
Would you
major
go?
league, 100%.
Yeah, I'd
Yeah, dude.
they'd have two more fans at every game, and it would be us. What a bargain.
$100 for 37 games? I mean, it doesn't matter where you're sitting because you're gonna be able to come down.
You're gonna, yeah,
Yeah,
100%.
you can walk down. So, somebody else I wanted to mention, Cody Bellinger, man. Good to see him back-ish a little bit. 7 home runs, 7 stolen bases, 927 OPS, batting around 300. Like, it's cool. Cubs are playing 500 baseball. That's also good. So, yeah, I wanted to throw Cody Bellinger out there because, we wanted him to bounce back. I feel like
We did.
and we talk about him. Maybe him needing a change of scenery, and he got it, and it looks like it's working out. So I wanted to mention Cody B.
Yeah, and I've been interested in the Cubs' moves that they made all season. Like we said, they made a lot of moves, and see where it leads them. We were thinking, I took the over on them being, I think they could be a 500 team, maybe a little bit better. So it'll be interesting how the year goes along. I like when the Cubs are good.
Yeah.
And I still have them as a sleeper pick for Shohei if it happens at the trade line, but Anaheim's playing pretty well too. It's a weird time in baseball right now.
Very weird. One of the ones that I do want to say, we've talked about who's hot a lot. I want to talk about who's not hot because we haven't mentioned a whole lot of who's not. I'm going to give it to the AL Central. The entire division just absolutely sucks. It feels like Minnesota is in first place, 19-16. They're not terrible, right? But then you got Cleveland at 16-18. That's the only, like, Minnesota is the only team above 500. It's the only team with a positive run differential in that division, and it's crazy. it's crazy how bad these teams are. Obviously, you got Kansas City, which I mentioned, the White Sox. That was my expectations. They're not letting me down. The Tigers are almost 500. That's a little bit of a surprise. Javi Baez leading the way, but that division in general is just so bad. I don't know. And yeah, I do mention like the run differentials, but the NL East is also only have one team that has a positive run differential, and that's the Braves. So I don't know. The Braves, it looks like they're running away with it. So you got Minnesota Twins and the Atlanta Braves running away with those divisions. And I don't know. Philadelphia just got Bryce Harper back. Maybe they got something going on, but it feels like it's starting to separate a little bit. Like, Atlanta's up 7 games ahead of Miami and the Mets.
Atlanta, I think, can run away with it quickly.
Yeah.
And I'm a Mets fan, and I just feel this slipping away because Atlanta won't give ground later on in the season. Like, we look at some of these teams, like you're saying in the Central, wouldn't be surprised to see the Twins go on a skid, right? I'm not saying they're a bad team, but wouldn't be surprised to see them give ground. The Braves are not just going to give you anything. To come back from 7 games back, you're going to have to play really, really well. And in that division, I know they don't play each other quite as much, but you're going to beat up on each other. And I could see those teams staying at the end of the year 5, 6, 7 games back now. I don't see that division going up and down, up and down. I think it's tough to gain any sort of ground. And in the Central, I keep telling myself that Cleveland is going to come up and beat the Twins. And then if you tell me at the end of the year the Twins won the division, like, I can see that as well. It's really weird. Like, my money's on Cleveland, but it feels like one of those years where it's going to stay like this all the way through.
And to your point to the NL East, they don't play each other as much, so it's going to be tougher to make some ground when you fall behind by as much.
True.
You're not going to be able to kind of like handle it, right? Grab the bull by the horns. That's not going to be the case as much. With the AL Central, we did mention in our preseason previews that the Twins was the only team that can kind of go at it against Cleveland, and that's what they're doing. So good for them. Good for them. Let's go to our last topic, and this is you guys have seen start, bench, cut, right? So we're gonna have 3 options. We're gonna pick a team. Today we're gonna do about 3 different teams: start, bench, and cut. Which team you would start, kind of like on your starting lineup, starting rotation. Who would you bench? Which basically send him to the minors, and then cut. Who would you get rid of, right? So who are we highest on out of these 3 teams? And we wanted to go with teams that are a little bit of a surprise, right? We got the Baltimore Orioles are 22-12, off to a hot start in the AL East, the best division in baseball. We got the Pittsburgh Pirates at 20-15. And then we got the Texas Rangers at 19-13. We've talked about these teams since before the season started and everything. So start, bench, cut. We got the Baltimore Orioles, Texas Rangers, and Pittsburgh Pirates. John, what do you got?
Are we doing one at a time? Or you want me to name all 3? Let's do one at a time.
Are we starting with start?
Yes.
Okay.
We're starting with start.
It's
a
tough.
brutal division. For me, out of these 3 teams, the one that's going to keep it up, I think, is Baltimore. I think Baltimore, because when I look at what they were doing last year, they were building towards this. So that gives me a little bit of confidence. They brought up Adley Rutschman last year. He showed very quickly how good he can be. They're younger players, Gunnar Henderson, they were all developing. They were getting better, and then they start this year playing really well. So to me, maybe they've overachieved a little bit, but I don't really see it as a fluke. I see them as having a really good team. They're young. They got some emotion. They're playing with a lot of confidence right now in a good division. They've survived the first month. They're looking up at the Rays, but who isn't? I think they keep rolling. I have the most confidence in them, aside from the fact that they're in a terrifying, terrifying division. But I'm starting the Orioles. I love what they got going on in Baltimore.
And I think it's very tough. This is very tough for me. I think the reason why what you said about the Baltimore Orioles, that they're in a tough division, that's the only reason why I'm not picking them as start. I'm going with the Pittsburgh Pirates. It's the weakest division of all 3. That's my start team. And I'm thinking like long term, right? Like out of these teams,
yes,
who can make the playoffs, who can make some noise? I think obviously Baltimore is leading the wild card. Pittsburgh's leading the division. Even if they somebody, I don't know, Milwaukee gets hot again and takes over, they still have a chance at the wild card. But O'Neal Cruz obviously got hurt. They expected him to come back at some point, but I'm gonna start the Pittsburgh Pirates. I want Pittsburgh to be good. I just think the Baltimore Orioles have a lot of good teams around them, and the same cannot be said for Pittsburgh. Everybody in the NL Central sucks, and everybody in the AL East is amazing. So that's the only reason why I'm going with Pittsburgh. You don't like it. You don't like it. Okay, that's fine. Bench.
No, I do, because you mentioned all my fears with picking Baltimore, and I just told myself it's okay. Like, to me, they're the better team.
They are the
but you make they like head to head. You're probably picking Baltimore, right?
100% of the time. Yes, between them two. And listen, Texas is no joke. Texas is no joke. Like, it's very close, but I'm just thinking who has a better chance at making a run and making some noise. I think I'm going with the team that is in the weakest division, and I don't know. They're still, the Pittsburgh Pirates were very hot, and right now they're not, but they're still holding on to that division lead, and I feel like that division can be won with like 85 wins. It feels like, right now it feels like an 85-win team can win that division.
So we agree with each other's points, but we're so far off on this start bench cut, because I'm benching Texas, which means I'm cutting Pittsburgh. I hear what you're saying about the division, but right now, and there's a long way to go, Pittsburgh, tomorrow, they may not be in first place. I think they're half a game up. Mm-hmm. It's something really close like that. And I think the teams behind them, I think Milwaukee's a good team. The Cubs are intriguing to me. I think of these teams, Pittsburgh is the more feel-good story than really good team.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm wrong. And again, Pittsburgh's another place that we would love to see good baseball. Texas right now, I think the only team they have to contend with is the Astros. And they're playing significantly better than the Astros right now. I never thought I would say this, especially the last time we spoke. We said the Astros made a statement when they went and swept the Braves. But when I start looking at the Astros now, they're playing 500 baseball. Jose Abreu has not slotted in the way we thought he would. They obviously let Yuli Gurriel go. Verlander, we mentioned it in our season preview. You think if anyone can replace him, it's the Astros. But he hasn't been there for them, and those aren't wins that they can count on. I think maybe this is the year that someone catches them. I didn't really think it was the Rangers, but they've been so solid. Maybe DeGrom gets better as the year goes on. He hasn't been bad, but I think they're very well-rounded. And I think if anyone can avoid kind of the collapse between these two teams in Texas and Pittsburgh, I think it's Texas. So I'll bench them, I'll keep them, and I'll cut Pittsburgh.
I'm going to bench the Baltimore Orioles, and I'm going to cut the Texas Rangers. Now, when looking at the three teams, I think Baltimore is the best team. I think Texas is the second best team, and I have the Pirates as the third best team. But
you're going divisions.
But I'm looking at the division. I have to look at the division. And yes, Baltimore is in the toughest division of all. But Texas is a big loss with DeGrom. We don't know if he's going to be back. We don't know what's going on with DeGrom. That's a big loss.
Always going to be the whole year.
Yeah. Josh Young, obviously, is playing great as a rookie in Texas. They made a lot of additions. We talked about their additions. But, Houston, like you mentioned, they haven't clicked yet. And it feels like it's only a matter of time, right? Bregman's struggling. Abreu is struggling. Altuve was hurt. He's going to expect the backwalk in the next month or so. So I expect the Astros to be there at the end. The Angels are playing great baseball. Maybe they found a closer. They still got Ohtani, who in the run for the MVP again, and the Cy Young and everything. Mike Trout is still Mike Trout. They're going to be around 500, it feels like. And if they decide to go all in because they want to give Ohtani and Trout a chance, they're going to get better. Seattle is not playing the best baseball, but they're only 3.5 games behind Texas. So that's not a whole lot either. So I'm going to go ahead and bench Baltimore and just cut Texas. It's a big question mark, that DeGrom. I think if DeGrom was healthy, fully healthy, not on the IL, but, he got pulled out of his starts multiple times already this year. If he was healthy, I think maybe it would change things. But again, I'm starting Pittsburgh just because of the division. I'm benching Baltimore just because of the talent, and that's the reason why I picked. I decided to go division and then talent when it came to the bench and
Yeah,
cut.
and I think I kind of went the opposite way. I'm also, because you make really good points, I'm less high on the teams in the Ranger division, I think,
Yeah.
than you are, to be honest. I think I think this could be the year that the Astros fall off a little bit. Honestly, I think Seattle. I said they were going to take a step back this year at the beginning of the year, which doesn't make them a bad team. But again, I think they're going to
Julio,
take a step
talking
back.
about
And
talking about earlier, we are talking about who's not hot. Julio Rodriguez is
yeah,
struggling big time.
yep, Julio Rodriguez, and he's a huge part of it, right? Like
Yeah.
they're taking a step back if he doesn't do that well. And then the Angels, as excited as I am for them to be in the hunt, they've never really given us a huge reason to think they're going to take the next step, and we like the Angels. We do.
Texas haven't either. I must say,
But they're
Texas
in
haven't
first
either.
right
I
now.
know.
They're
I know.
first right now. They made their moves, and so I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt,
Yeah.
essentially.
You're giving
Um,
Texas the benefit of the doubt, but not the Angels. I got it.
yeah,
I got
I
it.
am. I am. Only because they're in first right now. They've
Yeah,
got a
yeah, yeah.
bigger lead. It's not a lot, but I just feel like they'll hang on there, to be honest. But
Yeah.
we'll see. It is tough because that's very interesting. There's different ways to look at it
Yeah.
when we're doing that. But those three teams were really tough.
Yeah, and I think that's something that we can always kind of look back after a couple of weeks. Like, hey, let's see where they at. We want to bring you some more start bench and cut. So if you guys enjoy this start bench cut, let us know and give us more ideas or more players or teams, whatever you want. We can do it some more. But it's very tough, and I think there's no right or wrong answer. Honestly, like I'm excited for all three teams being there because they're usually not. They're
Yes.
usually not talked about as a playoff team. So it's very exciting for baseball in general. So other than that, I think we're good. You want to walk us off, John? Anything you're looking forward to?
No, so I told you last time we did this that, and you mentioned this earlier, it's kind of these are like the dog days of summer, as that they call them, right? You never really think of stuff being decided at this point, but a lot of teams that had a good first month or a bad first month, this next month is huge because once you're 2 months in, um, you've kind of shown the type of team you are. It doesn't mean you've won the division, lost the division, or anything like that. But the picture becomes a lot clearer. And how upside down some of these standings are right now, if we come back and do this at the end of May and they look similar, then we're in for just a wild summer and fall, baseball season. So I hope it does kind of continue to stay a little bit chaotic. I hope these three teams we talked about are still playing well, and we'll see how it goes. But I'm excited to just kind of see teams grind it out and see what develops.
Same. I think it's the first month is a short sample, right? The second
Yes.
month is when you're like, it's for real now, So if
Yeah.
you're struggling after May, you may be in for a long season. There's a couple cool series coming up. We got Boston and the Braves are gonna be playing this week. That's gonna be fun. Toronto and Philadelphia. I expect it to be a fun series as well.
Yep.
Houston and Angels, Tampa and Baltimore. That's a good test, to see
Yes.
kind of like what Baltimore is really made up. It feels like, right, it's Baltimore, the question mark when we look at those two teams. But yeah, no, excited for May baseball. We're here. But I think that will do it. Again, if you guys enjoyed the content, make sure to subscribe, like it on YouTube. If you're on the audio version, again, make sure to rate it, follow it, all that good stuff. But this is Jejo, and we will see you next week or next episode. Maybe we'll have a weekly during the week episode. We'll see. And we'll see you next time.
Adios.